Chris Vasi Trio, and we've got all three of you a rare treat on this interview. Normally, one sits down while the others flee. The opportunity to go home early. Before we get into a discussion that's going to be quite interesting, I think, with the three of you together with me, would you each take a moment to tell the audience something about yourselves in your own words?
Okay, I guess I'll go first. I don't know what to say. Interested in, I guess, musically speaking, combining a lot of different influences and different types of music is a fun thing for me. So, whether it's taking what you learn from jazz and, blues and music around the world and all the different stuff, that I heard growing up, and, constantly listening out for different stuff. And, it's a never-ending quest, and it's always a ton of fun to put that together.
And an obvious master of an instrument I dare not try again. Anything with a fret.
You try it?
Done what? I tried, of course I tried. I would love to be able to carry around a guitar instead of hoping there's a piano. Well, I tried that too. If you got a piano, I got you. Other than that, I'm off. Mr. Bass Player.
Yeah, I started many years ago. I'm kind of almost in my retirement years now and trying to play more music. Love playing with Chris and Forrest, two people who are very good. And Chris, he was mentioning the breadth of what he takes, and it's true. I mean, we played both a Disney tune, something from Buena Vista Social Club, Jerry Mulligan, and I love that. So I started a long time ago. Just someone put there was a bass available, and I got it, and that was in the late 60s when I was growing up, and music was changing unbelievably. I was very much into the horn bands and Chicago. My dad had showed me Duke Ellington and Vasi and all that stuff, and so that caught his ear, and that's kind of where I started.
That's my uncle played with Duke. He's long since passed. We can talk about that another time. Forrest.
Hey, well, I just want to say I love playing with these guys. We've been in lots of different projects together. Carter and I have, before the pandemic, we were at Sedona Tap House every Sunday out in Midlothian, playing with Bruce Sullivan and his trio. And so we've got a really good chemistry going. And Chris and I have been in Monk's Playground for many, many years. So we've got, a lot of good musical connections going. We kind of can finish each other's musical sentences when we're playing, hopefully. Yeah, I started playing drums when I was in middle school. There was a talent show, and some of my friends wanted to play Stairway to Heaven at the talent show, and I had never played the drums. And luckily, my cousin's boyfriend had a drum set that I could go bang on, and he kind of showed me some basic stuff, and I did my homework and made it through, the talent show. But I was hooked, and I saved my money on a couple of paper routes and bought my first drum set. But I also like to draw, so yeah, I draw and I drum, and more recently I've been drawing pictures using words and lyrics and poems and stories, and I've done a portrait of James Baldwin using quotes from a documentary. I've used James Taylor lyrics to draw Martin Luther King, and it's kind of like stippling. It's just using words instead. But
I am fascinated. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? What do you mean you use the words to draw?
You got to see these things. They're
I think
fantastic.
I have.
Yeah.
Some words are elongated, others, fit a shape.
I mean, if you can imagine any black and white drawing that you've seen where there'll be cross hatched lines and shading and things, instead of doing any of that, it's all words. And like Carter said, I'll stretch the words out, or I'll make them really tiny, so it's a little bit of typography in there too, but it's all done by hand. And you really only see the words when you get up close. I've got a website, it's lyricportraits.com.
Lyricportraits.com. Now I'm going to be on there. I have a lot of work to do tonight, but first I'm going to be checking out these portraits. Man, I wish we were talking about that. I have so many questions about these portraits. Why are you choosing words? Why not the cross-hatching? Why do you draw the people that you draw using the words that you use to draw them?
I can tell you, I could wax on forever about that.
I could too. We'd better move on because we can talk about it any old other time. So we've learned a little bit about how each of you got into music, and you play together here tonight. But how often do you play together? And since the pandemic, how often have you been able to get out your sticks and your fingers and your strings?
Well, we've met a couple of times in my backyard to rehearse, 2 or 3 times. But other than that, it's we haven't actually played together on stage in
Long time.
maybe a couple of years.
Last
But-
gig I played was with Carter over a year ago.
But like you say, we have that connection, and I get to play with Carter a lot more often in different projects too. So we're not strangers to each other at all.
Well, I'm glad to be able to get you back to performing here tonight. As you were putting together your set list, the three of you play together regularly. I imagine Chris selected maybe many of the pieces tonight. Are those pieces that you're familiar with playing, or are you experimenting with new music as you're coming back together?
Yeah, we're trying to pull in some new things, a couple tunes that we've played before, and a couple new ones too. Just always trying to keep it mixed up, and we play some 3-hour gigs sometimes. We do things that are, you have to have a lot of songs. And for tonight, to limit it down to 10 or 12, I think we did 10 songs. You get a chance to kind of mix it up a little bit, like I said. So,
And as you're putting your set list together, is there a particular story you're trying to tell through the music?
well, in a way, there's a bit of a journey through different rhythms and key changes and stuff. I guess like most musicians might try to do, the pacing and all, but you never know. There's a lot of different ways it can work.
There's always a ton of different ways it can work. Like I say, I'm not a keyboardist. I'm not really a bass player either, although I'm a little bit better at that. I say keyboardist. I am a keyboardist. I'm not a guitarist. Was a drummer at one time. I famously gave that up because you have to load drums in. Did you know that everywhere you go?
Oh, man. First in, last out.
Yeah, I still am, it turns out, but at least I don't have to carry any drums.
Looking for a roadie.
Well, you've looked in the wrong place.
I know.
My friend.
Nobody wants that job.
Oh, God, so somebody, but it's not me. Thelonious Monk is an interesting choice for me, and not hear anyone tickle any ivory.
Right.
Tell me about why you're so. I think Monk appears twice tonight. Why so much?
One tune we played, but he's in all of what we play in a certain way.
And do you have the other band
Monk
where
gets
you
in your head.
focus
You know how
on
it
him,
is. The idea a couple years back, I was sifting through the Monk songbook. I've always, for a long time, loved listening to him, playing the tunes, playing them on guitar. Gave me certain ideas, and then I had the thought to try to put a band together, do a few interesting arrangements, and I think I knew I didn't want a keyboardist in that band, a pianist at all, just because, it'd be better without. If it's not going to be Monk, I wanted to do something a little different, so.
You don't need a keyboardist there all over like I say, I love to have a piano in the room because I can't do the rest.
Who could top Thelonious actually playing these tunes is what I'm saying, so the goal is to do something different with it and not try to equal or surpass what he did.
I'm almost equally interested in your use of Charlie Parker in a group like this. Talk to me about that.
Bebop, I mean, if you love jazz and bebop, you gotta love that stuff, and there's just so many bird tunes that are great tunes,
It's challenging.
That's the challenge. It's the challenge of it. I couldn't
sure.
concept it, is what I'm getting at here. I think it's fantastic. I think I would have been lazy and said, somebody play this piano right here.
And that's one that many people don't play,
Yeah.
Segment. I've always loved that tune, and this forced me to try to get it better under my fingers.
So tonight on the set, not really for the first time, we've had Disney before, but you tell a story about your students introducing you to a Disney song from Cinderella, no less, and you've never heard it. Why Disney tonight, and how could you have missed that song?
Maybe it's because I somehow never heard it. I don't think I've seen the movie, so that song was new to me as we played through the Disney Songbook, which has a lot of great tunes in there, some of which have been done by jazz artists. You know, I think Coltrane play Jim Jaree, Jim Jiminy.
Dave digs Disney. It's a tongue twister.
Right.
Dave digs Disney.
And that one, you know, I just heard something. I heard something in it that I thought would sound good with a trio with these guys. So decided to give it a shot. And
Well, it pulled on my heartstrings for sure tonight. And Disney, you're right, lends itself very well to jazz. Many jazz tunes are covered by jazz tunes. Disney tunes are covered by jazz artists. But they don't have to be. So I'm interested, each of you, why do you choose jazz and not anything else?
jazz chooses us, Robert.
I knew
Preach.
that was coming.
I mean, I just love it. I don't know about you guys. Well, I do know about you guys. You love it too. There's a certain, I don't know, there's freedom combined with the structure. There's expression. There's the fact that it's new every time. Every night, every day you play it, it's going to be something new about it. And one of the hardest things for me is to play something the same way 4 times in a row.
Yeah.
To play something exactly right. Because I always think about variation or something that can be done. So that's okay in jazz.
Featured prominently in a lot of jazz is the bass. The way it plucks, the way it walks sometimes, they can take a bow to it and stretch the note out. What's the bass player's experience like as a jazz musician?
Well, I'll answer this question, but also say that I grew up listening to jazz, but I also grew up listening to jazz rock. It was the time when things were changing and the electric bass came into it, and there was a funkier side to things, and I also like that. And I don't consider myself a pure jazz musician because I love James Jamerson, all the Motown stuff, and I'd love to have people dancing too. That's kind of separate from the cerebral world of jazz, but loved the Duke Ellington stuff. He's always had great bass players, and my main man was Ray Brown for a long time. Then I got to go to a New Year's intensive. It was in Woodstock, New York, and it was 1980, I think. Maybe 81. But it was at Carl Berger's Creative Music Studio. It was 10 days with Jack DeJohnette, Pat Metheny, and Dave Holland.
Wow.
Dave had just come off a fairly serious heart ailment, and this was like his first time out, but I was just blown away by all those people, and I love Dave Holland. He has such a singular voice, and so after that, going to that, I kind of didn't pick up my bass for a while. I thought, I'll never get there, and I probably won't, but whatever. My journey is to keep working at it, and part of that is jazz. It's listening, it's playing off of people, and it's not playing the same thing all the time.
Well, you surely got me beat. Now, as a drummer, one thing that fascinates me every time I see a group and I hear a drummer with as much rhythm as you have, I'm fascinated on your thoughts as you're taking a solo.
I have never been a drummer that thinks about solos, as a solo per se. When you're young, especially when I first started learning about drums, you think of John Bonham, you think of Neil Peart, and you think of Buddy Rich, and I enjoy taking solos if I take that pressure off myself and just think of saying something interesting around the melody that everybody's already thinking. It's already been established. Everybody's kind of playing around with it, throwing it like a ball back and forth, and so I really just want to, like in the spirit of jazz, just kind of come up with my part of the conversation and see if I can create something in the moment that's interesting.
And in that conversation, the language you're using, is it Does it involve an accent or a couplet of beats or a triplet, or how are you communicating?
You know, I just take it, like I said, like really in the moment. I don't ever have a plan. If I start to think while I'm playing, I'm getting ready to do this, then I'm probably not in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I try to just let go and relax and just, you know, almost to the point of at the end of the song, I have no idea what I just played. You know, it just happened.
Improvisation.
Yeah.
There's something beautiful about improvisation every time, I think. And it's not just jazz. I mean, we see improvisation in Baroque music, ornaments. We see it later on, a cadenza here and there. But jazz, I think, takes it in such a beautiful direction. It gives it more joy to me. I mean, I'm an opera singer. I use ornaments all the time, but I feel the most joy when I get to improvise with a group of musicians like yourselves. As a bass player and a guitar player, and soon we're going to wrap up and get back to set 2, but how do you receive the communication from a drummer who really doesn't have any notes to play to support your melody, but with his rhythms?
Well, you know, everything that the drummer is playing is giving us something to go off of, and finding a way to fit in, you know, with maybe the idea I have in my head of what I'm going to play is combined with what I'm hearing from both of the guys while we're playing, kind of adjusting and morphing, you know, and combining in different ways. So there's a lot of reaction. There's a lot of listening and appreciating, anticipating where it might be headed, all these things, you know. It's part of it's kind of like being on a amusement park ride, you know. Improvising is like that, wouldn't you say?
Well, no seatbelt.
No,
At times.
I mean, a certain amount of experience comes from just being buddies and playing together. You know, I think when you're in an ensemble that's, number one, small and clearly so well connected, it sort of is like reading minds, at least for me.
Yeah, I mean, the three of us have played together, but part of it is just trying with all the distractions to only hear what is going on and not be waiting. You know, I don't know, it's so finely tuned. And most of the time it doesn't work, but I felt like tonight, at least a couple of these songs, we did some really good things.
I like what you just said about playing through the distraction. It reminded me in the best way of days long by when there was a cafe full of dancers and full of an audience, or a marble hall just packed with hundreds of people. That's distracting. But you keep on going through the bramble, as one of my teachers used to say. You know, and sometimes maybe it's your experience too. Sometimes that distraction hypes me up.
Or the fact that there's no audience, in a way, is a distraction.
Yeah.
You know, just because it's so different.
Don't know if they're liking it. I've sung a few times this program, and you are right. Boy, it's much more difficult than a room of screaming fans.
It's nice to have that energy, you know, a little feedback.
Yeah. I mean, then you get the energy of the crowd, and then you have a whole other thing going on, which is great.
You learn to play through
Yeah.
a lot of distractions. We mentioned my students that I teach. I had one youngster who was getting ready to play his first talent show, first time playing in public. He'd been practicing his song for months and months, and he was doing okay with it, but I wanted to make sure. So in the last lesson before the performance, I said, go ahead and play, just play, and I'll try to distract you. So he didn't know it was coming, but I had little dog toys I was juggling. I threw something in his music stand. You know, I kind of shook his book a little bit. You know, something's going to happen when you're there. You're going to get distracted. Can you play through it? You know,
It's brilliant.
I was kind of jumping up and down and trying to, you know, and just keep on playing. He's, of course, laughing his head off, and, you know, he did okay.
Why weren't you my teacher? Boy, that sounds like fun.
That was fun.
My goodness.
I don't do that
sounds
every
like a ball.
lesson, but
It takes a good an educator makes all the difference. A great educator, a good educator really makes all the difference. Sometimes people ask me, how'd I get here? And I just say I had the right teachers and I read the right books. But the rest of it could have been anyone else. Well, gentlemen, thank you for the chat. I look forward to being able to invite you back with a full house. You know, catch a couple
That'll
of
be great.
dances to your rhythms and your notes.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, they've heard enough of me. Do you mind giving us set 2?
Absolutely.
Let's do it. Thank you all.